Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's session. First of all, thank you very much for your time. I'm Samantha Morrison, and today I'm going to take you through this session, probably for the next half hour or so, to discuss some of the top 5 reasons that might be signs for you to migrate from Sage 50 to Sage Intacct. So by way of introductions, as I said, I'm Samantha Morrison and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at the Sage for Sage Intacct in the UK. I'll be delivering the session today, but I'm also joined by Kelly, who's the Marketing Campaign Manager for Sage Intacct. Kelly, do you want to do a quick intro? And I believe you've got some housekeeping as well for the attendees.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Sam. So hi, everyone. I'll be facilitating today's session. And before we begin the webinar, just a few housekeeping items to run through. So for those of you new to the GoToWebinar platform, you'll see a control panel to the right-hand side of your screen. The key pieces for you to just keep an eye out for. So first of all, there is a chat box there. If you've got any technical issues throughout the session or you'd like to reach out to myself, feel free to pop a message in there and I'll get back to you. Similarly, we do have a questions box there. So as we're going through, if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask Sam, if you add those questions into that Q&A box, and then at the end of the session, we'll go through and run through those questions. The session today is going to be recorded, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the recording after the webinar. And then finally, we're going to be running a few polls throughout the session today. You'll see those pop up onto your screen as we're running them, and it's just multiple choice. So all you need to do is select the option that you feel sort of best represents you in your current situation, and then submit that poll, and then we'll be sharing the results to the group after each poll that we run. And back over to you, Sam.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So yeah, as Kelly said there, we are going to run a few polls, but I thought what we'd do is actually kick off with one just to get started, just so that we can get a bit of a lay of the land of what's going on with the audience today. So the first one that I want to just check with you all, it's really simple to answer the questions, by the way, and it's all, we won't know exactly who said what, but the first one is around what's keeping you awake at night. So a few different answers that will be coming up in a second, but is it that there's never enough hours in the day to do all of the tasks that you need to do? Are you struggling with remote workforce accessibility? And I think that's something that's really been accelerated through the whole COVID crisis. Is it around finding like workarounds to things that you need to be done quick and easy, or are you spending more and more time on things like manual processes which are eating into your working day, eating into the time where you'd rather be doing more strategic initiatives, or even eating into your personal time in the evenings, and that means, you know, you're not spending as much time as you would like with your loved ones and hopefully soon friends as well, now that we're allowed to do so. And so yeah, if you can just pop your answers into the poll there, and then we'll see what comes back.
Cool. We'll just leave that up for a couple of minutes to give you all a chance to vote, and then we'll share back the results. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the poll now. And taking a look at the results, it seems fairly evenly split between the remote workforce accessibility and spending more and more time on those manual processes.
Okay. That's really interesting. I think the one thing that has surprised me with this one is the remote workforce accessibility, because I think, as I just mentioned previously, this whole COVID situation has really accelerated the fact that we have to give people that flexibility to use their accounting solutions wherever, whenever, however. And we have seen a lot of people start to kind of talk about that more and more and more. You know, in this new world post-COVID, we need to be able to free up like the limitations of things like on-premise solutions. Because what that means with an on-premise solution is that historically you've either had to work in the office or set up a remote access server. And you know, that can come at a cost. It can come at a resource requirement to get that implemented, and also, like, you know, IT staff to maintain and keep that access server running. But then if you think about with a solution like Sage Intacct, which is cloud native, that uptime and that accessibility remotely, it's just a given. There's no need to be chained to the office, the desk, or invest in these like additional tech to accommodate the remote workforce. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see that even at this stage post-COVID, people are still finding that a challenge, and there are means and ways, and there's definitely solutions that can help you overcome these challenges. And then I think as well, it's good to see that there's an even split around the last one with manual processes as well, because it's really important to think about the fact that, you know, the way to drive growth in a business without making this financial bottleneck, I guess, is to really automate daily processes. So, you know, we at Sage look at things that our customers do on a regular basis and automate them. So that enables you to, you know, it gives you time back to become the strategic leader for growth that is needed in a business. And then, you know, through that, it also enables you to stay in control through things like configuration and approvals, and also enables you to focus on the day-to-day things that you need to be able to drive that success. If you think about like CFO 3.0, it's all about how are you enabled to get the information and the resources and the accessibility at the click of a button, however, wherever, whenever, to really give you that insight to be that strategic leader and make the decisions there and then in real time. You know, not just in the here and now as well, predicting for the future and really helping you drive and plan for that success as you go forward. So thank you for your feedback on that. I think that was really interesting to see, and it'll be interesting to see what the results of the other polls go like as we go through this session. But yeah, thank you very much for your feedback on that one. So let's just get into it a little bit more. So like, how do you know that it's time to migrate? There'll be a few different subtle signs that might be happening within your business, causing you a bit of headache every now and then, or they might even be things that at this point in time you're not really realizing, but they could be starting to really give you a bit of a headache and giving you the indication that it's time to make that move sooner rather than later from Sage 50 to a cloud native solution like Intacct. So the first clue is this one, and it's around doing too much of your Excel reporting in Excel. So I just want to start off by saying though that when it comes to Sage 50, it really is great at doing what it's designed to do. So, you know, if all your financial statements and reports are based in the chart of accounts, that's absolutely no problem whatsoever. But some of the customers that we've spoken to have developed a need for more complex reporting. So they've outpaced what Sage 50 can or could at the time provide for them. And then additionally, they've been unable to sometimes slice and dice the data in the ways that they needed. And that might be because they lacked things like the dimensions in calculated fields. So as an alternative to dimensions, what some of the customers have been doing is significantly increasing the chart of accounts lines. And that, like, it definitely helps with financial reporting purposes, but it has in the past led for some customers to data quality issues and then often difficulties tagging the GL entries correctly. And then, so without the ability to create these calculated fields, they've then been unable to combine financial and non-financial data to be able to easily see information, like, for example, revenue generated per sales rep. And then, so for these reasons, more and more of the reporting for these customers have moved out of Sage 50 until, you know, over 50%, 60% upwards of the reports were built in Excel. And so this does and has caused delays for people in the past. It can cause missed deadlines, and particularly when generating reports for execs or the board, for example. And that's a position really that nobody wants to find themselves in. So the next point is this one, which is around multi-entity consolidations taking hours to days. So, you know, as you go through growth, you might be acquiring additional entities, setting up more entities in your system and so on. And developed as an on-premise solution, Sage 50 wasn't necessarily built to handle the needs of organizations that have several business entities. So customers that we've spoken to in the past mentioned that when they've been starting up a new entity, it's often felt like a new implementation. So that can be time consuming and costly. And for example, in instances as well where there's no in-house expertise to do this, there've been additional costs to pay a consultant to do the implementation work. So these are kind of unaccounted or unbudgeted costs, which are always a bit of a surprise to a business. So anything you can do to avoid or eliminate them is always beneficial. But on top of that as well, things like customizations often needed to be reconfigured, or the chart of accounts needed to be rebuilt, and then all entities can end up siloed off from each other, which again kind of gives you disparate sources of information. and it's really hard to do that consolidation in an automated, sophisticated way. And then because of that, the inter-entity transactions, for example, might need to be manually keyed in to ensure that the books have been balanced. And then consequently, consolidations can take hours, if not days, because the data from all of the different entities has to be exported and combined into one central Excel report. So these delays can ultimately, impact the speed at which a business can close the books, which isn't always helpful. The third one we've got here is the need for access, remote access to your systems, I guess. And this obviously echoes back to what we talked about just a couple of minutes ago around one of the biggest pains. So as I said previously as well, I think the current global kind of COVID crisis has really accelerated this need and this requirement. And we do see more and more businesses seeking a solution that enables this remote working on a daily basis. But even before COVID, we did really see it as quite a common theme that came up in conversations. Numerous customers touched on flexibility, or the flexibility of being able to work anywhere, anytime, as a really big advantage. And that was one thing that really kind of swung it from them when they made the decision to move to Sage Intacct, for example. So previously, as I mentioned before, they had one of two choices. So it was either work from the office or set up this remote access server. And the former often led to long hours and weekends away from friends and family, and the latter often meant, investing in the infrastructure and additional IT headcount to keep things up and running. Two sacrifices that people and businesses don't necessarily want to have to make, but at times, there's no choice. And I guess because Sage 50 is an on-premise solution, as the number of users and transactions and the volumes grow, the performance of the solution for some customers began to decline. So in order to try and improve the performance, customers would sometimes invest in additional servers and IT headcount to set up and maintain them. And like I said, expensive is a word I'd like to use here. And then it hurts even more when this expense is unbudgeted for. So when you think about flipping it on its head with a cloud SaaS solution and a subscription basis like Sage Intacct, it's always on. It can scale up and down with your business. You can use it anywhere, however you want to. If you're on the train to a meeting, if you're on holiday, you can just access the system whenever you need to. And because it's this subscription model, you know exactly how much you're going to be paying month in, month out, and there's no nasty surprises around some of the additional IT hardware costs, for example. And then we've got this one around manual integrations. So your integrations, have been replaced by manual workarounds. So a lot of small to medium-sized businesses aren't necessarily looking to replace all of the business critical solutions with an all-in-one suite, and that's absolutely fine. It's often the case though that industries have specific needs that are only met by those best breed vendors. So what you need is systems that integrate and communicate with each other, but what you'll sometimes find is that they don't, and then these connections and these integrations are replaced by manual workarounds. So many customers that we've talked to, they needed and they really required an easy way to connect all of the solutions without the high costs that are often associated with this. Additionally, though, I guess because Sage 50 runs on a server or a computer that might not always be on, any changes that might be made offline it doesn't necessarily mean that the integrations are done at the same time and they might automatically updated. So the integration work around this can often become quite expensive and complex as well, and quite difficult to build because you're having to constantly check that all of the systems are in sync with each other. So again, if you flip it on your head with a cloud native solution, you've got this guaranteed uptime of 99.9% or something along those lines, where it's always on. There's an open API for the integrations, and there's like a constant data feed from one system to the other. So it gives you that reassurance that kind of the systems are talking to each other. And then the last point here is that you might have unscalable and error-prone manual processes. So I think with this one, it's really easy for inefficient processes that used to work when you were just starting out or gradually kind of growing. It's easy for these things to become kind of standard operating procedure. So then you think about, even though they're unable to scale, this is when it becomes tricky, because if that manual process can't scale with you, that you then need to put specific headcount onto that process as the business grows. That's the last thing you want. You basically want a system that can grow with you, and automate a lot of this stuff. So if you think about things like, if you can automate the process for things like POs, approvals, invoice generation, payments processing, and currency conversions, if you're doing all that manually, it's really easy to lose days, hours, weeks of productivity to these processes. One customer that we spoke to, actually, they were physically printing out POs and walking around the office to get the necessary signatures to get them signed off. And then there was another one that had the DSO increased by over 50 days because they were manually generating these invoices. And if you think about, if you're generating thousands of invoices a month, the amount of time and effort and human resource that is required to do that, it can be really, really kind of unscalable, inefficient, time consuming, and expensive. So based on that, this is by no means the end of the session, but I just wanted to get a feel for, based on what you've heard in those few slides previously, hopefully it's giving you some food for thought around what your bigger pain points might be around the business. So from the 5 elements that we've just talked through, like, what do you think is holding you back or might hold you back in the future? Is it the same things as we talked around before? So is it too much Excel reporting? Is it consolidations? Is it the remote access? Or is it these workarounds and these manual processes? Because we know what your current pain points are now, but if you could address them, what do you think might be the biggest ones that would really hold you back? So if you can maybe just, same as before, pop your answers into the poll. I think Kelly's popped it up live there on the screen.
Yeah, and same as last time, we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to vote on that. Okay, it looks like everyone's voted, so we'll go ahead and close the poll and reveal the results to everyone. So once again, it looks like remote access has been a bit of a runaway hit here. A couple of people have also referenced the consolidations and the manual processes too. So more of a mix around this time.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's really interesting. Again, the remote workforce and accessibility thing clearly is a real concern and a challenge for businesses. So I think, it's really, now is the time, I think, if it's something that really is starting to cause a pain for your business, is it the time to start thinking about an alternative solution which can give you that real remote access anytime, anywhere, anyhow? Because I think the other thing to remember is that the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 desk-based job is almost a thing of the past, really. Now, people are they're doing the job, they're running the business for multiple. I mentioned it before. You might be on the train going to a different part of the country to have meetings. You can still run your business remotely on your iPad, on your laptop, whatever it might be, whilst you're doing that commute. And people really are starting to require and demand so much more flexibility around that. And I don't know if anybody's seen on the news recently, but some of the UK's biggest employees are going to be now kind of adapting a new hybrid way of working, where sometimes you'll be in the office, but there'll also be the option to work from home. And I think that really just goes to show that it's the way that it's the way the world is going, really, isn't it? So more and more people are definitely addressing that. So yeah, thank you. That was really good to see. I will crack on now with a few more slides. So now you've heard what you've heard about some of the pain points. Why would you consider Sage Intacct? Well, you are already part of the Sage family. You're a Sage customer, and your success and growth are at the core of everything that we do. So we want to really deeply understand your world. We want to understand your pain points. And we have a strong customer success function that does all of this, and based on that, we've been able to deliver these award-winning products, and particularly with Sage Intacct, it's something that we feel is really kind of like a bit of a groundbreaking solution, I guess, for our UK customers. It's new to the UK in terms of it launched maybe best part of 2 years ago now, but the solution itself is 20 years old. It launched in America. It's been in America for 20 years, and we've decided as a Sage business to kind of really globalize the solution and take it to the other regions. But yeah, so just in terms of some of the reasons why you might want to consider Sage Intacct, you've got things like your multi-dimensional reporting, so you can get the reports that you need super quick, so seconds rather than days, with all of these calculated fields and the unlimited dimensions I've mentioned previously. You've got that real-time visibility into some of the key metrics with your dashboards. You can reduce audit time significantly, and you've also got these clear audit trails, and the auditor can get direct access to the reports as well, which I think is a really beneficial thing. Also, this streamlined multi-entity management. So, as we're talking about businesses that are in a growth period, it's really critical that they have this offering available. So you can consolidate hundreds of entities in minutes instead of days from this one instance. It's all in the same. You've got this one single source of truth. You can close your books significantly faster, and you can set up new entities in minutes without the expensive consultants, which I mentioned before, we know has been a bit of a challenge and a pain point for customers in the past. So in terms of some of the customers in the UK that have seen some of the benefits from some of these features alone, one of the customers that we've got is East Malin Trust, and they're a charitable organisation, and they support scientific research into the Horticultural Society. Since implementing Sage Intacct, they've seen a whole raft of benefits, but some of them would include compiling board reports 50% quicker. They've sped up the peer run process by 75%. They've halved the time to do the quarterly VAT returns, and they've got some of the bespoke dashboards set up for users so that certain people across the business only see the data that is relevant to them. But some of these bespoke dashboards for the teams really help to simplify and speed up the day-to-day tasks, because they basically just log into Intacct. They have the dashboard set up, and all of the key information that they need and require is just there and ready for them to pull and delve into in whatever level of detail they need. And in fact, the Trust's executive director, she's got a dashboard for herself that's got a view of cash flow, balance sheets, P&L, and other various KPIs, and that allows her to, as I said before, just instantly see all of the core metrics when she logs into Sage Intacct. But then, as and when needed, she can drill down into the detail if she wants to. And then we've got another customer, LW Cole. If you're not familiar with those, they supply and install domestic appliances for UK house builders. They implemented Sage Intacct some time ago now, and they've seen savings of a day every month because of the automated report generation. And they really like the data manipulation and the efficiency gains that they get from the dimensional reporting. The finance director actually even said that he's never seen an accounting package like this before, with the tagging transactions and the dimensional data, which he said was invaluable. And actually, as a result of implementing Sage Intacct now, he says that they can send over a sales invoice, and within that invoice they can tag the customer, the product manufacturer, the type of product, name of installer, and way more stuff like that. And ultimately, he said that straight away, with that one transaction, they've now got several different bits of data that they can manipulate to create the reports from, and that it's very powerful. So hopefully you can see just from, and that's just 2 customers that are currently using Sage Intacct in the UK, some of the benefits that they've seen already. And then just a couple more. So why Sage Intacct? Well, it's built for the cloud, and this is where I think for the people on the call today, it's really beneficial. Anytime, anywhere access with 99.8% guaranteed availability. You've got your rigorous security certifications as well, so you can rest assured knowing that your data is uber secure, basically. The relationships that we have with our hosting providers is really strong. It's a really reputable provider, and you can guarantee that no matter where you are, how you want to access it, you can get to it, and your data is absolutely secure as it'll possibly be. You've then got things like, with a cloud native solution, this like feature-rich upgrade cadence. So with Sage Intacct, you get a quarterly release, so every 3 months is a release. You don't have to do any manual upgrades to take part or to take benefit of these new features. They're automatically deployed, so when you log into the instance that you have the day after a release, for example, you'll be able to take advantage of these features. And then you've got these modern cloud APIs as well for always on integrations, which is what I mentioned before. If something's done when the server's down, then there's kind of like chasing your tail to kind of fix things on the back of that. But with these always on APIs, that's not necessary. Some other stuff as well around automation and scalable financial processes. So you can really significantly grow your revenue with little to no additional headcount. You can automate some of these processes around PR, payment approvals and workflows, and you can really increase your efficiency by upwards of 50%. And as I mentioned before as well, reducing your DSO by over 30%. And this will really help you to generate free cash flow. And then I guess with this automated invoice generation and payment processing, it just saves you so much time because it's just done. For example, one customer we have, Osprey, said that they've saved so much time on a day-to-day basis that they now have time to focus on budgeting and forecasting and wider strategic planning for the business. And that was a CFO from Osprey. Because if you think about CFO 3.0, it's like that's where everybody needs to get to. And we want to enable our customers to get to that point as well. We want to be able to free you guys up of the restrictions and the time and the investment that you have to spend in the day-to-day. Automate all of that so that you can go off and spend your time being that strategic leader and thinking about how you can really take the business forwards, rather than looking at the here and now. So that's a really quick whistle-stop tour of some of the features and the benefits of Sage Intacct. And this is the last question from us, so this is the last bit of manual stuff you'll have to do. But just knowing what you know now and what we've just told you about Sage Intacct at a really high level, where do you think the solution could help your business? If you were to move from Sage 50 to Intacct, what areas do you think would be the most beneficial to you? We might see a bit more consistency and repetition here, but is it around things like reducing the need for Excel reporting? Is it the consolidations? Are you in a period of growth and you want to start to bring in different disparate sources and multi-entities together? Is it the remote access? Or is it again around these manual processes and workarounds, or is it something else? So I think Kelly's opened the poll up again.
Yeah, and we'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to go ahead and vote on the final poll here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the poll again now. So once again, it seems that sort of remote access seems to be an area that people have been quite interested in sort of exploring more, and it looks like they can kind of see how Sage Intacct can help in this area, but also on the consolidation side as well.
Lovely. Okay, it's nice to see a bit of consistency, I guess, through them all. Like, you know what your pain points are, you know what your headaches are, and you hopefully also see that Sage Intacct can help you address some of those. So that's good to know. So thank you everybody for your participation in that, in those polls, I should say. But ultimately, that's it from Kelly and I today. We hope you found the session insightful. I think a key takeaway from us to you is just to think about the fact that Sage Intacct, it can bring you the solution that you need. It can help you gain new insights. It can simplify your multi-entity management. the key one I think to pull out is that you can work how and when you need to, and also, automate some of these key financial processes. And that's why so many customers, not just in the UK but across the globe, have already made that move from Sage 50 to Intacct. They're gaining better visibility, more flexibility around how and when they work, and they're really improving some of these critical financial and business processes. And that's ultimately giving them a really meaningful and measurable ROI. So if you do want to find out any more about Sage Intacct, I've popped the URL on the screen here that will take you to the website, and the second one there will take you to a page where there's recordings from previous Sage 50 to Intacct migration webinars, so you can go and have a listen to some of the previous sessions that we've done as well. But yeah, that's it. I mean, we want to take the next couple of minutes if we've got any questions. Kelly, we can field a few questions. If there's any that are a bit technical, I'll admit that that's not my level of expertise. So if there are any more technical questions, we will take them away and field them to the product engineering team. But otherwise, Kelly, is there anything that's come through?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come through. Just as a reminder, if you've got any questions as we're just going through this Q&A session, you should see on your control panel the questions tab. If you just type your questions in there, then we'll go through as many as we can on the webinar today. But any that we're unable to answer, we will just take those away and get those answered and come back to you with an answer on those. So the first question for you, Sam, is can we use a hierarchy for approvals?
Yes, you can. And that's probably one of the many reasons that people move to Sage Intacct, because it does give them that greater flexibility of approvals as the business grows. So yes, the answer to that is yes.
Nice and straightforward. Next question that's come through. So we need to amend management reports. Can Intacct help us?
Nice and easy one again. Yes. There is like a built-in report, right? And that means that you can change the reports as and when you need it, based on your requirements. So yeah, I like these easy ones.
Brilliant. Next question might be a bit more challenging for you, but it sounds like a lot of the support and the system has been sort of quite heavily US focused. Is that still the case for Intacct today?
No, I mean, I think as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Sage Intacct was initially launched by the Americans into America, some 20 years ago, and it was only launched into the UK best part of 2 years ago now. So at the point of launching, a lot of the stuff that we probably would have been focused around the US, but we've had a really strong localization plan and project in place for the past couple of years now. And then I think in terms of some of the support and systems, we have support centres in Dublin, India and California. So there's there is basically 24-hour follow the sun support. So each centre is trained to manage customers from all regions, but you can also request a specific centre if you prefer. So yes, historically Sage Intacct has been a product that's been built and managed by our colleagues in the US, but as we've localized into the other regions, we have built out that support and the system framework as well for the other regions. So Intacct now is in the US, the UK, South Africa, and Australia. So we have to, as a business, ensure that we have the relevant customer support for all of these different time zones and regions. So yeah, it's globally supported now.
Brilliant, thank you, Sam. It looks like it does, yes. So it looks like that's all the questions we've currently got in the panel. So I think what we'll probably do is end the webinar there today. But what I will just mention, and Sam plugged it a minute ago, so we're running these webinars now as a series. We're aiming to kind of have a new webinar available every sort of 6 to 8 weeks. It'll be on that same series page that Sam mentioned, so you'll be able to review any on demand that you may have missed before. So this is the third in the series we've currently done. The previous webinar was around 8 weeks to the cloud and a bit more information on the fast start implementation that's available. And then previous to that, we ran a panel discussion with a couple of our Sage Intacct customers. So if those sound of interest to you, you can log on to that page now and we'll follow up with a link to that so you can have a look. But just keep an eye out, see if there's any sort of future sessions that sound of interest to you. And you will get a survey pop up after the webinar webinar that'll just ask you a couple of questions about your experience today, and if there's any topics that you'd be interested in finding out a little bit more on. We'd absolutely love to hear any suggestions you have, so please do fill out that